This one's for my fellas. Is dating difficult for you because you're broke and black? Let's see what she has to say.
I genuinely want to know why black men make dating so difficult. They make it.
Hi, I have an answer, and it's simply because they don't have money. So I've been thinking about this a lot as it relates to my personal dating life. A lot of my friends who are black women who are in their late 20s, early 30s, who have been struggling with dating, who prefer to date black men, and have been doing it in comparison to my white peers and some peers outside of like other races.
So before she really gets into her point of view and stay with me, I think she does have some interesting takes on it. But like I said in previous video, and like most of you guys know, it costs to date. Period. Um, just for now, set aside the generalizations. She's just talking about her lived experience. So let's give her that grace.
But specifically my white peers, as to why we all went to similar schools. We all went to similar schools. We all have similar educational backgrounds. We all work similar jobs. Um, for bar, we would say we would live very similar lives, except I just oscillate in primarily black spaces and they oscillate in primarily white spaces.
All right. For this experiment, you got to hold for the variables. Same schooling, same upbringing, same everything. Except there's black spaces, white spaces for her. All right, let's continue.
Um, with that said, I think it's because white people, but specifically white also men, are raised in the way that they have generational wealth, but a generational wealth mindset, meaning that they saw their parents get paired off and married, within their 20s. They have grandma's ring and heirlooms. They have a house that they know that they will inherit. They have a mindset knowing that even if they lose their job at Goldman Sachs or in tech or whatever, that they have this sort of privilege that they know that they'll always be fine and they know that they'll always be able to take care of their family. So even though they're in build mode, they're not necessarily.
So here's where I think things get a little off the rails. Um, it This whole thing is for takes a supposition that generational wealth is a fact for white families. That even if it's not generational wealth, even if it's not homes, heirlooms, there's there's a mindset that they have attached because they see their parents coming together and working together in such a manner, see them getting married. So that in turn sets their mindset apart. And while, again, that can be true in cases, and it's absolutely true that net worth wise, black families are running near dead last in the heat, where white families are not. However, that does not that's not a truism all across the board. That there aren't any poor white families. In fact, um, back in history of the United States, it was more of a rather than a race issue, it was more of a class issue where they convinced poor white people that although you're just as poor as black people, at least you're not black, right? That became the divide right there. So I think it ignores a very, 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 very important fact that yeah, white families experience plenty of crisis in terms of housing, in terms of net worth, in terms of having something to pass down. In several of my properties that I rent out, I have white families that are on state assisted aid that don't have heirlooms or something to pass down. But let it cook.
Really worried that they would lose everything. And I think that mindset is different for black men, meaning that they spend a lot of their 20s and even in their early 30s really trying to play a game of like financial catch up, really trying to get themselves established. And because they're playing that game, they play games in other areas, meaning that they don't necessarily take things seriously in terms of getting married, having kids, buying a home, starting family, because those things.
I think right there, and may have paused it too soon. You should maybe right about say those things require money. I don't think it's a game. If it's a thing about playing games, it becomes a thing of priority of what can you do with the resources that you currently have when we have a larger system telling us as black men, as men in general, that you have to pay the cost to be the boss, that a house costs, a family costs, a dog costs, vacations costs, cars costs, that in your 20s, I really only am good for immense amounts of physical labor and time. This is the time I'm supposed to experiment with different jobs and what can I do, what resonates with me, what can I actually do that makes money. More to the point, men are often told, or this is beaten into our heads early on, that a lot of us are now, and the numbers are showing, forego going to college because of the crippling debt associated to it, and would rather go into a field that pays them, a trade field that can has an opportunity for them to become their own boss, entrepreneur down the road. Again, because that's heavily pushed. So I think the value and the necessity of money is something that men, not just black men, have to accept and internalize very early on. However, we never further tell them that this is a game of time. This is a marathon that's ongoing here. You're more than likely following the statistical average. You're not going to be able to afford the things that society is telling you need, that you need to be considered a success in your 20s or in your early 30s. The majority of us hit our earning potential in our 40s, in our mid 40s to 50s.
Require money, and if you don't have it, you're not they're not necessarily going to, I guess, just take those things seriously. And again, I was just really thinking as to like why I'm in my late.
Again, not a thing of taking seriously. It's a thing of prioritizing, especially when in the black community we're not really apt to build things together any longer. You're not going to look for in like she says in the 20s, not really looking for a man that is trying to put these things together, just trying to figure things out. You want him to have already completed these things, so therefore he's more attractive. So it's a thing that's going to take time, and as society marches forward and becomes inexplicably more and more expensive, that just pushes the goal further away. Now I get it. Women have a shorter timeline to figure these things out and get the things that they desire in life. But men, in order to still be able to help or facilitate or completely provide those things, he needs more time.
Late 20s. A lot of my friends are in their late 20s to early 30s, and we're still like dating and on dating apps and dealing with games and all the shenanigans that come with dating black men. But then when I look at the Jennies, the Tiffany's, and the whatevers of the world, a lot of them who I have worked with or work with, why they all, ironically enough, got engaged all at 27, 28, around the same time.
Now, I think the Jennys and Tiffany's and the Kylies and the such, I think they'll tell you the same things, that their white counterparts, their white men, are playing games or engaging in shenanigans as well. It's not something, again, that's ubiquitous and it's universal. It's easy to cherry pick and look at these anecdotal examples and say they're getting married earlier on, right? But here, just saying that it's because they have a better mindset, their men have a better mindset of, I'm trying to build generational wealth. And on the counterpart, the counter narratives on our side isn't that. I think it's a very poignant and overused buzzword in the black community about building generational wealth. But We have one of the worst spending habits. The dollar circulates very briefly within our community. I think if we truly understood what building generational wealth was, it's a scary, daunting, selfless act. Like I like to give an example. If I do everything right in my life and I'm a success and I build a legacy, I build generational wealth, what we look at as a success or wealthy, right? Helicopters, private planes, luxury vacations. I may never own the private jet, but if I do everything right, if I do everything completely right, within, and we're talking within reason, we're not talking that you hit the lottery, that you um, are in a professional sport. For the average among us, for those of us that make our way there, we'll probably never have the helicopter or the private jet. We are now creating the chance for maybe our great grandchildren to. We have to be okay with knowing that we may never be in the spotlight. That's what a generational sort of mindset is, that the things that you do, you may barely tangentially benefit from. You will live a better life, hopefully, than your parents, but not one in which I think what this woman is suffering from is that comparison game.
And it's felt kind of like sorority like, very systematic. And again, it's that peer influence around them. If they see all their friends doing the things, and this goes for men too, they're going to go do those things as well. Or if they saw their parents do it, they're going to go do it as well. And I don't think black men saw it from their fathers. And they also didn't necessarily and don't necessarily see it from their peers around them. So they don't also feel kind of that social influence to do those things, especially for black men in major cities like a New York, LA, a Chicago, a Miami, maybe even Houston.
I think that when we hear people talk about their own experience, it reveals the level in which they are. Sometimes there are things happening that we don't have access to. It's beyond us, it's below us. If you find yourself in your social circle or in your daily life getting these some results that you are unhappy with, before you can outwardly judge and say it's someone what is happening, it's the men, it's the women, you really have to look and say it's me, right? I'm the common denominator. Where I am, wherever I am, this is where I find myself. I don't I don't really experience women around me talking about 50, right? And if I do, I found myself in the wrong environment. I quickly remove. It's not to throw shade at at whoever's having these conversations, and I mean real conversations, as in this is what they believe and this is what they're pushing forward. The people I'm around usually are open to discourse, open to hearing what the other person thinks about a topic or what they believe in, and coming to some sort of common ground, or at least leaving like and feeling like if their point of view was actually heard. So if you're around people that you somehow observe or you can see the exchange, it's up to you to remove yourself and work on yourself to now that you are now around the other people having these actual conversations that are in line with where you want to be. If she's around black men that aren't, trying to propose and get married to her, then it may be a circumstance that, yes, it's a cultural thing. Yes, we wait till later, or you're not what those men who want those things are looking for.
Maybe in the South it might be a bit different. But yeah, there's more I can say on this, and I've been doing a lot of research. I'm actually going to write an article about it, just the differences and nuances between being a black woman dating versus like my white contemporaries and their dating experiences. But yeah, the one factor that it boils down to is money, and if you don't have it, you're not able to progress forward in dating.
People have been getting married without copious amounts of money forever. I think it's reductive, and I think it becomes dangerous when you leave it down just to a monetary reasoning. Why? We forget the nuance. We forget a character, maybe a complete character, a difference in expectations between the different races. White women expect their men to behave this way. White men expect their women to behave this way. And when that's closer aligned, okay. If white women have an expectation that my future husband isn't there yet financially, but he will get there because maybe he has a generational wealth mindset. Maybe he came from a family that has a safety net set up for him. If for any type of real comparative study that she's looking to do, I would hope she will look at the nuance of the thing. But maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that great YouTube stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.